Hi, my name's Chris Fryou. I am a retired pastor coming up in July, and live in Covington with my wife Paula, and we have one child, 37, Lane, and she's a social worker at one of the elementary schools in downtown Covington. I was bivocational at the time. I was in the medical industry up until about 37, 38. And I'm 65 to give you some time frame there. My wife had signed both of us up to go to a Fryou retreat weekend, of which we turned it down 5 times because of me. I just didn't feel like I needed to go. And so she came to me one week and she says, listen, they're calling us to go to Fryou again, and if we don't go this time, they're going to put us at the bottom of the list. And so, what say you? And I said, okay, fine, I'll go for you. And be careful whenever you say you'll go for someone else, because God definitely has other plans. And so we went to that weekend, and it was a remarkable weekend that I understood the weight of God's grace for me, and it changed my life forever. I came back home. At the time, we were attending St. Timothy United Methodist Church on the North Shore, and James Mitchell was a senior pastor, and I went to James, and I said, James, listen, I'm thinking about possibly going into the ministry. And James, bless his heart, and I didn't understand it at the time, but I'm thankful for his answer. He looked at me and said, Chris, listen, if you could do anything else in your life, go do it. And I got up from that meeting, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but went back home and told Paula, and I just sat in silence. I sat with no answer for a while from God, and it was still overwhelming. And I know now the reason for his answer to me was that, listen, anybody can tell you anything. If the call is real, then no one can deter you from going into the ministry and serving God. And so that's how it all started. James gave me a little red book to read about being called into the ministry, and it described all the different avenues, elder, deacon, local pastor. And at the time, my daughter was 5, and I chose the local pastor route, and I'm thankful, unbelievably thankful, that the United Methodist Church offers that pathway for people like myself and others to serve. So I have 2 stories that come to mind. I started at St. Timothy serving that church for 3 years, and then I was appointed to a little country church called Waldheim, United Methodist Church in Waldheim, which is probably about 4 or 5 miles northeast of downtown Covington. Beautiful little Whitechapel church. And I was serving there, and my brother, who's deceased now, him and I grew up hunting ducks, hunting deer. And my brother had sent me a video clip about how to skin a deer in 2 seconds. Now, I'm not going to get into the video. It's fairly graphic, but if you're a hunter, then you know that at some point you have to clean the animal that you kill so you can prepare it to eat. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I had a group of friends in Wisconsin that I would fly up and go hunting with as well. And so I created a group emailing for them with my best friends. One of my best friends' last name was Wallace, W-A-L. I also had a group emailing for the church and the congregation members of the church of Waldheim, W-A-L. And I thought that it would be a great idea for my friends in Wisconsin to see this video, because they're big deer hunters as well. So I'm behind the computer, and I'm preparing the video to send off, and I go to my group emailing, and I see the group emailing, and I hit the button to send to WAL grouping. I'm sure you know what happened. The nanosecond that I sent it out and I looked, it didn't go to my friends in Wisconsin under Wallace. It went to the entire congregation of Waldheim, WAL, and all the friends of the congregation members. And I just sunk in my chair. I'm like, I'm done. Actually, my little bitty ministry of 4 or 5 years is now sunk and done. I called my wife in, she comes in, and I told her what I did, and she just looked at me and said, I can't help you. She turned around and walked out, and I'm just sitting there with a sinking feeling like, okay, well, what do I do now? And so, didn't do anything. I'm dreading Sunday. Sunday rolls around. I walk into church, and everyone that I ran into thanked me for the video. It was absolutely wonderful, because you have to understand, Waldheim is a country church made up of farmers and hunters. And they love to hunt themselves. And so the gears were switched when I thought very sure that I was going to get fired and call the bishop and the whole 9 yards. I walk into a church that, like, oh my gosh, that was the best video I've ever seen about how to clean a deer. And so that was kind of a funny twist on a whole week of lamenting on how I was going to tell the bishop what happened, and it never had to happen. So kind of funny there. Same church, there was we had a Down syndrome kid in that church. He was about 30 years old. His name was Jack Montgomery. And Jack used to sit on the front row on the right as I faced the congregation, front row right seat, right on the front. And I must have started a sermon the same way I started it the week before. Oftentimes I would recap what I said in the last sermon, specifically if I was in a series, so that I could catch people up on what we were going to speak about on that particular Sunday. So I probably started off the sermon the same way I started off the week before. And without missing a beat, Jack slaps his leg and says, "For God's sake, here we go again." It leveled, I'm telling you, it leveled the entire congregation. I mean, everybody was laughing. It was one of those just beautiful moments in my life that I will never forget. And it wasn't long after that Jack died. And that solidified our church, because everyone liked Jack. And Jack could get away with things that I would never let anyone else get away with, because Jack was Jack. And I'm blessed that I knew him and had the chance to be the pastor of that church during his lifetime. Gosh, there were so many people that invested in me. All the bishops, Bishop Hutchinson, who asked me to sit on the board of ordained ministry, which I was grateful for and did, and had a wonderful experience during those 8 years of service, and met a bunch of people that I probably wouldn't have ordinarily met, possibly. And so I'm grateful for him and just his ministry during my time of serving. Bishop Harvey, under her, the last couple of years when I had to have surgery, several surgeries on my hips and lower back, my wife would tell me that she would call her every day to ask how I was doing, and so I am grateful for her care. All the DSs, starting with Grayson Watson was my first DS, Freddie Henderson, Hadley Edwards, Ramona Lynn Bethley, Jane Kerwick, all these people who cared for me, loved me, called me, sent cards to me when I needed to be uplifted, and shared their stories of ministry with me that would help me, and their wisdom that would help me in my ministry as well. But there are 4 people, actually 5, that have meant the most to me, that I still have as friends that I can run to, and we can sit and talk about whatever it is on my heart, and be vulnerable with one another. And so one of them is Jack Odell. Love Jack. Him and I play golf many times, and me not very well, him very well. And we've shared many stories about ministry and personal stories that I'm grateful for his wisdom. Patty Hewitt, who is one of my dear friends, who before ministry we started off in a small group Bible study at St. Timothy called Passages. We're part of that, and Patty always jokes that that she went into the ministry before I did, and so kudos to her. I wasn't long after her, by the way. Lyndall Bullard was my mentor that was at Centenary in Franklinton at the time, and I spent 2.5 years with him discovering what the call meant for me and what it might mean to go into the ministry, and I appreciate his wisdom and time with me. But most of all, I shared an office at St. Timothy with a young kid that came out of Drew from New Jersey. Him and I came into the ministry at St. Timothy together. His name's Brady Witten, and we shared an office together, a very small office together. And we used to come to work and sit in that office, and I would pepper him with questions about Jesus and the Bible. And we would sit for hours, like all day, like hours, and just talk about Jesus stuff and theological stuff and life. And if there was anyone that invested in me a lot, it was him in those days. And I used to say at the end of the day, after hours talking about Jesus, I said, man, we didn't do anything today. And he would say to me, no, you don't understand. We did everything today. And we did. And so those were wonderful times of theological growth, of vulnerability growth, of being challenged in my certitude at the time. And he had brought me out of my black and white thinking into discovering that there's a lot of gray out there. And that's okay to hold that in tension. And I think that's what Methodists do. We hold in tension, in this tension middle ground, not too far right and not too far left, this tension middle ground of gray sometimes. And that's okay. It's okay. And I was taught that by Brady. And I love him. I'm having lunch with him shortly, actually. And me, Brady, and Patty meet all the time and chit-chat and divulge and talk to one another about life and help one another. And and the last person who ultimately gets all the glory is Jesus. He's the guy. He's why we're doing this video. He's why we're in ministry. And so I'm thankful that I found the love that I've been searching for in my life, because it's changed me forever. And I'm grateful for that.